Again, another child death. Why? Connor was my only son. I did not understand why he would commit suicide. I questioned God. How much more pain could I endure? I felt as if I was in a bad dream. A bad dream. A bad dream, which I could not awaken from. Can we stop sharing the screen? Unfortunately, it was not a dream at all. Have you ever felt like this since your loved one died, that you are in a bad dream? Prior to Connor's death, I loved hiking and lived close to the foothills of the Rocky Mountains. I climbed peaks just like the one I found myself on now that took me through forests, trees, and meadows. It was exhilarating when I reached the peak. I felt the sun on my face, a slight breeze in my hair, and smelled fresh, clean air. At the summit, I would walk close to the edge of the cliff so that I could see the view below. The walls of the ravine were abrupt, lined with boulders, beautiful rock formations, and trees that jutted from the steep walls. At the bottom, I saw the thread of the river cutting through the valley. And across that deep ravine was a mirror image of where I stood, forest, grasses, and rocks. It was a beautiful view. Life was the same on both sides. I did not want or need to be on the other side of that ravine. I was perfectly happy with where I was. More importantly, it was peaceful. That is why I climbed the mountain, to find peace. I loved being there, oftentimes finding it difficult to move, to go back down. When it was time to go, I simply took the same path I traveled when I climbed the mountain, back to where my car was, waiting at the trailhead. I drove back home in a deep state of appreciation and gratitude. Life was good. Then wham! December 14th, 2018 happened. On the mountain peak where I now symbolically stood, the ground was covered in ice and snow. I felt the bitter cold in my bones. Long shadows lurked with every tree. Dead, rotting leaves covered the ground, and the wind hurled and howled like a dying animal. I was overtaken with a deep, dank, musky stench. With each step I took, I felt as if I would slip on the ice and fall, crashing down the rocky ravine to my death. I started to run down the mountainside on the same trail I came up, but I could not. It was blocked. It was blocked by Connor's death. My heart yearned for life to be the same, that my son would come back. However, my head told me the truth. Life would never be the same. I found myself standing at a crossroads in my life. I could remain in my grief and sadness, or make a choice to move forward and live a fulfilling, productive life. I chose the latter. That is when I noticed something I hadn't ever seen before. It was a rope bridge connecting the two walls of the ravine. And I compare my grief journey to that of traversing a rope bridge from my anguish and sadness to hope and healing. Imagine one of those pedestrian footbridges that hangs over a deep ravine and stood with rushing water below. It was suspended hundreds of feet above the water and anchored to the cliff walls. There's no pillars to support the middle, and the arc of the bridge deepens with the weight of a person walking on it. Next slide. It uses the bare minimum of materials with gaps at your feet. Simple handrails exposing you to the perils below. The bridge and anyone walking over it are subject to wind, hail, heat, and cold. This is your grief. I wanted to be on the other side of the ravine now, that ravine of sadness and grief. I was suspended between my current reality and the reality of what could be. Crossing that rope bridge, although precarious, it was constructed by others who had experienced the tragedy of a child death by suicide. It was my ticket to healing. It was important I sought help from others. We can stop sharing. To stay positive. How did I do it? Move through my grief to healing. The bridge seemed impassable. Fear started to take over when I thought about taking a step onto the bridge. Would I make it? The prospect of falling existed with every step. I could focus on the possibility of slipping on one of those planks, or that it could break and could send me to the depths of despair, helplessness, and depression. Or I could set my sights on the other side of the bridge, the other side of that ravine where hope, joy, and purpose awaited me. I wanted to overcome my fear and have hope for the future. I yearned to take and turn my pain into purpose. I chose to move forward towards what I felt my son, Connor, would want me to do. I realized I could not get across the bridge, move forward without taking the first step. Somehow I had to navigate those perilous planks, the unsure footing, the swaying side to side, the unsettling rise and fall of the bridge. I was placed at this crossroads without my permission. I knew that the joy I was robbed of would return. It was there in the future. I leaned into my grief, faced my fears, was open to healing, walked through my pain, and found purpose to move forward. Every day I took a deep breath to move forward. I also trusted in myself and the necessity of the process. I leaned into others who had gone through child loss before me, lived to tell about it, and rediscovered joy. They navigated the rope bridge of grief and healing, encouraging me to do the same. This is what I know is true. My grief journey does not end once on the other side. However, my pain has eased with time. Yours will too. I believe you can survive your child suicide and live a fulfilling and productive life. Next slide, please. Hi, I am Peggy Green, author, grief coach, and public speaker specializing in grief recovery for mothers whose child died by suicide. I consider my 3 phases to move through grief to healing to be a holistic process. And that's holistic with a W, because it's founded on restoring your physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual health. My forthcoming book is Survive Your Child Suicide: How to Move Through Grief to Healing. It will be available in September of this year. Next slide. In the next 50 minutes, you will learn the 3 phases to move through grief to healing. Regardless of where you are on your loss journey, whether it's been recent, a long time ago, or somewhere in between, this presentation will give you practical tools to move through your grief. And that's if you find yourself tired, sad, hopeless, and no longer in control. You will cross the rope bridge with the 3 phases to move through grief to healing, starting with phase 1, acceptance. Phase 2, understand your fear. And phase 3 is recovery in your health. And with your permission, I will get started. Next slide, please. In the first part of this presentation, you will learn once you are able to accept your loss, you will be able to move forward in your healing to take the first step onto the rope bridge. It is necessary to accept that your loved one is gone so you can and will heal. Acceptance is not something that happens overnight. It's a process and over a period of time. Acceptance does not mean forgetting. It does mean being able to move forward. I want to repeat that. Acceptance does not mean forgetting. It does mean being able to move forward. Suicide is messy, complex, and complicated. I know when Connor took his life, I had many questions and found that many of them kept me from moving forward. Do you feel like you are on a hamster wheel, asking questions yet never finding answers, especially why your child chose suicide over life? I found that understanding suicide was extremely helpful in being able to accept Connor's decision. And now you will learn about suicide so that you too can understand it and accept your loved one's death. You lost your child by suicide, and suddenly you are now labeled as a suicide loss survivor. It helps to know what that means. Anyone who's close to someone who died by suicide and feels affected by suicide is a suicide loss survivor. Now let's look at the various aspects of suicide. We're going to talk about the what, the who. Go ahead and go back, Deb. The what, the who, the when, where, how, and why. After my son died, I started researching suicide. I wanted answers. I found that through my research, I got some answers. I got as much as I will ever get. I looked at all of Connor's Facebook messages. I looked at his cell phone text and pictures. I listened to his voicemail messages. I spent time talking, maybe more like interrogating, friends and family who saw him the days and weeks before he passed. What did they see? What did he tell them? I spent months in this insane investigation mode. I wanted and demanded answers. If you have done anything similar to what I just described, you are not alone. There are others who have gone down this road. When I started putting my answers together, it was like I had run an intense investigation of a crime, looking for what, who, when, where, how, and why. No stone was left unturned. However, there was still a mystery. Do you find yourself in the same place, looking for the answer to why? We will get to that in a few minutes. I feel it's important to know the rest of the story because it helps with the why. The following explanations are based on my years of research, of reading, and continuing research on this topic. So what is suicide? The Center for Disease Control and Prevention says this is the definition. Suicide is a self-directed, injurious behavior with intent to end one's life as a result of the behavior. Pretty simple. Now, I would like to add my own personal belief. Suicide is not an act of selfishness, weakness, or cowardness. Again, that bears repeating. Suicide is not an act of selfishness, weakness, or cowardness. And then who dies by suicide? It is our loved ones, brothers, fathers, sons, sisters, mothers, daughters, grandparents, as well as friends and coworkers. It may be someone we love so deeply the pain is unbearable. The risk of suicide varies greatly by age, sex, race, and gender, and personal characteristics, including education, occupation, family history, and place of residence. It can be the kid down the block getting through high school, the dad working in the office, or the daughter working on the factory floor. Suicide even takes young mothers and retired grandmothers. It can be your child. No matter their age, 10, 20, 40, or 50, they are still your child, and you love them. Simply put, suicide knows no boundaries. It does not discriminate with age, race, gender, country, region, or education. Suicide affects nearly everyone. When do most suicides occur? This might surprise you. We have been led to believe that suicide rates increase with holiday stress and winter when daylight is shorter. Well, research shows the opposite. According to an article written by Mark Shapiro, and it was published on Johns Hopkins Medicine's website in May of 2019, seasonal effects suggest that the prevalence of suicide is greatest during the spring and summer months. In 2016, the most recent data available, it suggested August and July. And then the previous year, it was May, July, and March. And then where do suicides occur? About 3/4 of suicide incidents occur at home. Most, I'd say 85%, die at the scene and never make it to the hospital. And those statistics are from the National Violent Injury Statistics System data. There's a degree of romanticism around taking one's life at a popular tourist attraction where others have ended their life. It gives them a sense of connection to those who have died before them. These places have been coined as suicide landmarks. There are well-known locations throughout the world for taking one's life. According to an article published by Best School Counseling on January 4th of 2013, here are 3 leading suicide landmarks. And I know that I'm not going to pronounce them correctly, so please forgive me. Number 1 is Akigara Forest in Mount Fuji, Japan. The next one I can say, Golden Gate Bridge, San Francisco, California. And the third one is Yangtze River Bridge in Nanjing, Jiangsu, China. And then how does suicide occur? What are the methods used? In my research, the method of suicide actually surprised me. The Suicide Prevention Resource Center latest statistics, which are from 2020, offer insight into the means of suicide. Firearms are now used in more suicides than homicides, making it the fastest growing method, nearly 53% of suicides. Next is hanging, suffocation, strangulation, comprising 27%. And then solid and liquid poisonings are 9%. And then the balance is non-drug poisoning, cutting, piercing, jumping, or moving into fast-moving objects. And then finally, we're getting to the why of suicide. Why is the $1 million question? Why did my loved one take their life? Why did my child choose suicide? Here's a partial list that concludes potential reasons for their decision. And if you would like, you can get the free downloadable report by going to whysuicide.com and requesting your free report with more details. I know that really helped me. A person contemplating suicide may feel shame, worthlessness, intense guilt that life is not worth living, or intense physical or emotional pain. And the factors that can contribute to a person feeling this way, it may be due to events happening in their life, perhaps bullying or discrimination. If we want to, we can go ahead and take that slide down. And a major change in life circumstances such as divorce, unemployment, retirement, or homelessness, or problems with money. However, suicide does not always occur because of a specific life event, and not everyone who experiences these events will consider suicide. People respond to adversity in different ways. More than likely, your child's suicide involved a combination of these events and feelings. Then one day, the weight of life simply became too great and they could no longer bear it. They felt the only way to end it was to end their life. What we do know from those who have attempted suicide and were not successful is they were in a lot of pain, physically, emotionally, mentally, or both. The choice was not to end their life, it was to end the pain, and they believed the only way they could end the pain was to end their life. Why did your loved one commit suicide? The answer will not be 100% revealed. The fact is, you will never know. Know that asking why is normal, though. And then at first, it may feel impossible to get beyond that question, but eventually you will find a way of thinking that you can accept and live with by learning the what, who, when, where, how, and why. You are equipping yourself to cross the rope bridge. Nicole hired me as her grief coach after her son died by suicide. She was the one who found him, and as a result was experiencing some terrible traumatic stress. She was stuck in the exact moment of finding her son. Before he died, he did normal things a son would do. He ate snacks in his bedroom, borrowed her car, and went to work. Nicole was unaware that he was unhappy, depressed, or in a dark place. When she arrived home after work and could not open the garage door to the kitchen, she knew something was wrong. She called her son's cell phone and heard it ring on the other side of the door. She knew he was there, yet wondered why he wasn't answering. She finally went to the front door. As she stepped into the kitchen, she saw her son's body slumped over, blocking the door to the garage. That was the horrible, traumatic event, finding her son's dead, lifeless body. She saw that image every day. I asked her, isn't it bad enough that he died once and now he dies every day? Without hesitation, Nicole agreed. She shared with me she repeatedly reenacts that moment, causing her to feel anxious, numb, and withdrawn from her friends. She wanted out of that. She wanted to stop seeing that image. She wanted to remember her son for more than how he died. I asked her a few questions to help her think differently. Do you want to remember how your son lived? You will also die at some point. In the end, wouldn't you agree that it really doesn't matter how? Would you feel better if you remembered your son in the good times? Her response to every question was yes, yes, yes. Remember how her son lived was important to her. After giving some thought about how you die, she agreed. It doesn't matter. The fact is, death is death. Focusing on how he died was making her sick. She cried and felt like no purpose to live. She longed to think of them in the happy times. Sometimes the image of finding her son would become intrusive. And so I suggested that Nicole have pictures of her son on her phone, on her walls, and on the table, showing the good times. Anytime the image of seeing her son at the garage door crept into her mind, she could focus on those pictures that were placed strategically around her house. These were happy, memorable images, and this allowed her to focus on how he lived rather than how he died. Now, initially, this was a challenge. She found that looking at those pictures would make her cry. But over time, they started feeling grateful for the times they were together. The horrific image recurred less and less, and now she focuses on how her son lived. This allowed her to accept what happened and allowed her to take the next step across the rope bridge. Congratulations, you've learned about phase 1, acceptance. You can be considering taking your first step towards healing. In the second part of the presentation, phase 2, you will learn about fear. The fear, pain of healing may have you completely paralyzed, stuck, unable to move forward. And the next slide, please. Fear, thank you. Fear is a significant part of the grief experience. In A Grief Observed by C.S. Lewis, He noted that grief felt very much like fear, with a sense of restlessness and similar physical sensations. I also appreciate his description that it felt as if there was an invisible blanket between him and the world. To live in fear is uncomfortable and debilitating way to live. Don't you agree? It's as if you were in the middle of the rope bridge. You've moved forward, but you're dealing with the unknown, the instability of the bridge, swaying side to side. You're not sure if you can take another step for fear of more pain and suffering. Dealing with it can be exhausting and draining. It can rob you of peace, joy, enthusiasm. For this reason, it is critical to overcome your fear. Ridding yourself of fear can help you to learn to live fully following your loss. Regain the you that you lost. So what is fear? Fear is a psychological reaction to danger. Fear can take root in places you never, ever dreamed about. Fear can completely paralyze you. However, it's a natural, powerful part of being a human being. It can be a biochemical or emotional response. It alerts us to the presence of danger or the threat of harm, whether that threat is physical or psychological. But fear and grief is different. Fear and grief is sinister. Fear can attack anywhere, anytime. It can grip your mind, tell you lies, causing doubt what you feel and believe. Fear is very real in grief. Fear is standing in the middle of that rope bridge, facing the fear of letting go, facing the fear of healing, the fear of the unknown, the fear of judgment. Fear can be a significant part of the experience of grief. Gratefully, though, you are equipped with the spiritual resources to disable your fear, hope, and trust. Acknowledge that fear may be inhibiting your grief recovery. Decide not to let it keep you from healing. Continue taking steps across the bridge. And the next slide. Fear often involves both physical and emotional symptoms. Each person may experience fear differently, and the potential long-term consequences of fear impact overall physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual health. Here's a short list of some of the common signs and symptoms of fear, and I've broken it down into each one of these, and this one is with the physical symptoms. And if you want, feel free to take a screenshot. So the potential effects of fear on physical health can include migraines, muscle aches, difficulty breathing, immune system dysfunction resulting in illnesses. And then we'll go ahead and talk about how fear can impact the mental health with the next slide. Mental health, it can impact you having difficulty regulating emotions, more than usual negative thinking, difficulty reading nonverbal cues, and irrational thinking. And then we'll move on to the potential effects of fear on emotional health. That's disassociation from self, unable to have loving feelings, learned helplessness, mood swings, and possible obsessive compulsive thoughts. And then the potential consequences of fear on spiritual health. That can be bitterness or fear towards God or higher power or others. You get to decide whether you want it to be God or higher power. Confusion or disgust with God. Loss of trust in your God or higher power, and waiting for God to fix everything. Now, these lists are not all encompassing. It is likely that you may experience more than one of these signs and symptoms of fear as it relates to your grief. As noted earlier, to live in fear is uncomfortable and debilitating. However, each new tool you learn, each day you survive, each tear shed takes you closer to healing, recovery in physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual health. It is critical to overcome that fear. You have now navigated the rise and fall of the rope bridge and are still moving forward. I'm going to talk now about recovery. So far, we have covered phase 1, acceptance, phase 2, understand your fear, And now phase 3 in physical recovery. In recovery, in physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual health. You are moving across the rope bridge, taking you closer to finding your new norm on the other side of the ravine of grief. Allow me to set the stage for your grief recovery through self-care. We can go ahead and drop that slide. And what does self-care look like? Self-care is what you do deliberately for physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being. Self-care is part of the package of total well-being, the holistic approach with the W, and moving through grief to healing so you can live a fulfilling life, brimming with peace, joy, and happiness. As a mother, you're a caregiver. It's natural to want to take care of others. I believe the desire to nurture is inborn and it makes you who you are. Often, you focus so much on nurturing others that your own health can take a back seat. It is easy to get wrapped up in the well-being of your children. When you're taken and they're taken from you, you don't know what to do or how to do it. Taking care of your needs is not a guilty pleasure. Sometimes moms just don't know what to do. They've been judged for doing so. They fall into the trap of pleasing others and doing what others think they should be doing. If you are a mom who tells yourself you do not have time to exercise, play, meditate, it is time to focus on you. It's okay to take care of yourself. It's time to do what you need to do for you. Because physical health is so often forgotten, you will learn the importance of it in grief recovery. Remember, it's only one part of that recovery process. Keep in mind that a holistic approach includes physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual health. Your pain and suffering caused by the death of a loved one can impact all areas of health. In grief, it is all too easy to turn to unhealthy behaviors such as alcohol, drugs, overeating, binge watching, oversleeping. But these behaviors do not serve you. Now is the time to focus on healthy choices you can make in self-care, including getting restorative sleep, drinking plenty of water, stepping outdoors, and spending time with friends and family. Here in phase 3 recovery, we focus on the importance of healing your health in grief. You will notice an obvious absence of traditional Western medicine. There are plenty of resources such as your physician, counselor, psychiatrist, or other Western practices and procedures. However, I found that practical, proven information encompassing holistic, again with that W, grief healing is much more limited. And that's why I focus on bringing you these options. You will learn about recovery by healing your physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual health. So I'm going to give you some symptoms, some acute symptoms of grief. So after short loss, after a short period, you can enter into acute phases of grief. Acute grief is characterized by changes in physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual health. Yeah. So here's some symptoms of that acute physical grief. Chest heaviness, shortness of breath, trouble initiating or maintaining sleep, lack of desire to eat, digestive issues, headaches, and broken heart syndrome, which I will discuss shortly. Physical health is often most ignored, denied, and disregarded. It's an important piece and should not be overlooked. Due to the traumatic death of a child's suicide, it is important to address physical health. It's that barometer that indicates how things are going in all areas of your life. You may be experiencing many physical symptoms caused by the grief, the migraines, insomnia, chronic pain, inflammation, and that broken heart syndrome. And what does good physical health look like? Let's go ahead and go to the next slide. Your physical body is the reflection sum of all aspects of who you are. Without it, you will fail to thrive. Physical health is foundational in easing complications of grief and promoting healing. There are a variety of things you can do for your physical health, such as sleep, meditation, hydration, nutrition, and exercise. I combined my personal training, nutrition consulting, and wellness coaching experiences to bring this to you. And this is my favorite topic. Stress caused by grief and suffering will wreak havoc on your body if you don't do something about it and prevent it. In your grief, it's easy to stop taking care of yourself. And when you no longer give your body the care it needs, it will shut down. Grief is physical. Your heart can physically ache. In Chinese medicine, grief is associated with the lungs, which can be responsible for breathing in stressful times. It's not coincidence that in a difficult period, people catch colds or bronchitis or pneumonia. Your immune system is weakened. Regular whole body exercise can have a profoundly positive impact on depression, anxiety, and grief. It relieves stress, improves memory, helps you sleep better, and boosts overall mood. It can help with weight management, improve your ability to focus, and offer a sense of control. And you do not have to be a fitness fanatic to reap the benefits. As a personal trainer, I have helped hundreds of clients reach strength and weight loss goals. I've also seen the impact exercise had on several mothers whose child died. It is not a coincidence that I help these mothers move through their loss. Ignoring your physical health will not make it go away and definitely not make it better. As a matter of fact, the longer you deny your health, the higher the risk of extensive physical challenges. Unresolved grief manifests into complicated health challenges and mental illnesses. Brenda started working with me after her 29-year-old son passed away, took his own life. She could not believe I recommended that she get off the couch and out of the house. She felt initially like I was trying to force her into something she did not want to do. She was struggling with even the thought of walking out the door. However, she trusted me as her coach. I suggested she start by setting a goal of walking around the block as part of her daily morning routine. She did commit to doing that, doing her best for 1 week. During that week, she logged her activity every day and noted how she felt afterward. When we met the following week, Brenda felt lighter. She admitted walking had improved her mood and she had more energy. Remember, exercise helps to increase energy, improve your mood, reduce inflammation caused by grief, and improve your shattered heart. Today, you heard about physical health and recovery. In my 3 phases grief to healing coaching program, you learn and practice tools in all aspects of health. So I want to talk about broken heart syndrome. This is one physical symptom I want to dive into deeper. Broken heart syndrome deserves special attention on its own. It was originally first recognized in 1991 by the Japanese cardiovascular specialist, simply known as Sato. Broken heart syndrome is also known as stress cardiomyopathy. So what is broken heart syndrome? The general hypothesis is that when you experience the loss of a loved one or extreme grief, the release of stress hormones can trigger cardiac or heart abnormalities affecting the heart muscle. This is a condition to be taken seriously. Common symptoms are chest pain, fainting, weakness, low blood pressure, sweating, nausea, weakness in the heart, and heart failure. If you're experiencing symptoms of this condition, please consult your doctor immediately. While this is a dangerous condition, it is treatable. You may need to seek medical care. I also know that taking care of yourself and working on your physical, yes, mental, emotional, and spiritual health will help you to overcome this challenge. Remember, there are many symptoms from grief, including broken heart syndrome. The warning signs I mentioned above are a sample of what you could be experiencing. Now let's talk about mental health. You understand mental health in the bigger picture of recovery. Some of the signs and symptoms of acute mental grief can include forgetfulness, difficulty concentrating, slow thinking, or a prevailing need to tell the story of your loved one. And it's here when I work with my clients that I talk about change your thoughts and change your life. So what is mental health? It's your cognition, beliefs, thoughts, and edicts you live by with a peace of mind and happiness. It encompasses the stories you tell yourself. And grief is from the heart, but the stories come from your mind. Events and facts do not change. Death is death. Facts are exactly what happened without embellishment. However, the story you tell yourself can change. That is where you have some control. You are in charge of the way you think and the amount of pain you experience. Your mind automatically kicks into survival mode when exposed to fear and danger. However, your conscious mind does not always do what is best for you. It can turn on you and talk you into thinking the worst case scenarios. So signs of good mental health. Well, Eileen asked me for some examples when we were working together, what strong mental health looked like. And I shared 5 signs. 1, you feel good about yourself. 2, you do not become overwhelmed by emotions such as fear, anger, joy, love, jealousy, guilt, anxiety. In grief, this may occur for some time, but will diminish. And number 3, you have lasting and satisfying personal relationships. And 4, you're comfortable with other people and new situations. And the 5th one is you can laugh at yourself and with others. And then I also feel it's important to know what the signs and symptoms of poor mental health is. And it's also known as mental illness. And based on my extensive research, I summarized the 5 basic categories into mental illness: depression, anxiety disorder, addictive behaviors, eating disorder, and schizophrenia. It's crucial to assess where you currently are in order to develop a plan of action. If you have mental illnesses, it's important to address them so that you can open up space in your healing to grieve. Mental illness is not to be taken lightly and should be diagnosed by a medical practitioner. If you feel you're experiencing symptoms of mental illness, please see a medical provider. The good news is mental illnesses are not a normal part of the grieving process. You can survive the loss of a loved one without experiencing mental health symptoms. The next part of recovery is emotional health. So far, you learned about physical, mental health. There are 2 parts to learn about: emotional and spiritual health. Emotional health is one aspect of mental health. It's like a subset. I'm focusing on emotional health because the tools I offer are different than those I recommend for mental health. So here's some symptoms. Acute, those are short-term emotional grief. It's fear, guilt, longing to be with the person who passed, loneliness, and anger. So having good emotional health is a fundamental aspect of fostering resilience, self-awareness, and overall contentment. This is something that you may struggle with since losing your loved one. Good emotional health is your ability to cope with emotions. It's the soul's barometer. And in emotional health, you're aware of your thoughts. You can express your feelings in a healthy way. And you pause and think before you respond instead of flying off the handle. You pay attention to your nutrition. And now I want to talk about that there's really no positive or negative emotions. There are only feel good or feel bad emotions. Think of it this way. If you judge yourself as crying, then you say it's a bad emotion. It's a negative emotion. Then you associate with doing something wrong. When you think it's wrong to cry, then you discount your grief. You tell yourself, crying is wrong, therefore I should not do it. Good emotional health does not always mean being happy. It does mean you're aware of your emotions and can determine if you feel good or feel bad. Emotionally healthy people still experience stress, anger, and sadness. The difference is you know how to navigate these emotions either on your own or with a professional like myself. Emotional health also affects your physical health. There is research that shows a link between an upbeat emotional health state and physical signs of good health, including lowering your blood pressure, reducing your risk of heart disease, and a healthier weight. And why do you want to seek good emotional health in your grief? Improving your emotional health pays off with a greater resilience to stress, reducing your vulnerability to illness. As you're aware, losing a loved one to suicide is stressful enough, and you do not want to add getting sick to your stressors. In grief, it is common to have different grieving styles versus those around you. The better you are equipped to handle your emotions, the easier it will be for you to maintain your relationships. An added bonus is that you're less likely to argue and instead be able to navigate your feelings. When you are emotionally depleted, it tends to also deplete you physically. Remember that all 4 areas of your health are related to moving through your grief and walking across that rope bridge. A positive outlook will help you feel lighter and help to lift the weight off your shoulders. It takes practice, though. So, signs and symptoms of good emotional health. You're in control of your thoughts and feelings, able to cope with life challenges, keep things in perspective. And poor emotional health, consistent long-term feelings of sadness, more than usual irritability, withdrawal from friends, changes in sleeping and eating habits, unusual restlessness and agitation. Now, well done. You've learned about physical, mental, and emotional health in recovery. The 4th area in recovery is spiritual health. Spiritual health is a personal matter involving values, integrity, and compassion, and supports the purpose and mission of your life. It is better to ponder the meaning of life for yourself and to be accepting of others' beliefs other than to close your mind and become intolerant. Spiritual wellness provides you with systems of faith, beliefs, values, principles, and ethics and morals. And here's some symptoms of acute spiritual grief: lack of purpose, lower self-esteem, withdrawn, negativity. However, a healthy spiritual practice may include volunteering, social contributions, belonging to a group, forgiveness, compassion, and gratefulness. Let's go ahead and take that slide down. Gratitude and grief. As someone who is grieving may find it difficult to be grateful. I know I was. However, gratitude has the power to help you rise above your loss. It is life-affirming and can provide hope and healing in your darkest hour. Turn your grief into gratitude. Focusing on gratitude helps you let go of the pain of the past and focus on the positive that surrounds you. In grief, it may be difficult to feel an ounce of gratitude. You might even ask, why? Why should you be grateful for anything, especially in the wake of the death of your child? It seems unfathomable. It is here that you trust the process and just do it. Lean into those who have gone through it before you and look at where they are now. Gratitude allows you to move through your profound pain and suffering. Your grief will shift so you can learn to live with your loss. You're moving across that rope bridge. You're taking one tool and then another and moving forward. Gratitude offers a blueprint to feeling joy again. It's a tool for coping with joy. Your gratitude doesn't have to be complicated. You can do it with any of these suggestions. And doing nothing, though, will keep you trapped in your darkest hour. It can turn into days, weeks, months, and years. So I daily write down 3 things I'm grateful for. And some days it's as simple as a hot shower. Or you can verbally express gratitude with phrases such as, "You are the best. I can't say thank you enough. How kind of you." When we start to do that, we produce those feel-good hormones. Or you can volunteer your time to an organization, do an act of kindness. Ultimately, showing gratitude can make you more optimistic. It decreases stress, improves physical and mental health with those hormones. You have the power within you to deal with your grief. Gratitude is acceptance while embracing the fact you're in a new chapter of life. Today, in phase 1, you started by learning some important information about suicide so that you could understand it, which can help you to accept what has happened and move through grief to healing. It is taking the first step onto the rope bridge, trusting the process and believing that you can survive your child's suicide. Phase 2, you learn what fear is and the signs and symptoms of it on your physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual health. Fear is like being in the middle of the rope bridge that you must walk across to move through your grief. And phase 3 is the hope on the other side of the rope bridge. You are anchored on firm ground and can focus on your recovery in your physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual health. They all work together in a holistic manner. Hope and healing start with acceptance. Recently, a friend whose child died by suicide asked me, after Connor died, when did I know I would be okay? I must say her question made me pause and think. It is not a black and white answer. After a few moments of reflection, I told her that from the beginning, I promised myself I would allow myself to grieve. You are here because your child died by suicide. I am sorry you are going through this. You are here because you want help. You want help to make it through a difficult season in your life, to go from one side to the other, to walk across that rope bridge from being where you are in your grief and sadness to finding the new you, the you that you lost. The process you learned today is a piece of moving through your grief to healing. I am excited to announce that my second book will be available this September. Sign up to get a free gift, and you will be able to receive updates on where you can purchase Survive Your Child's Suicide, How to Move Through Grief to Healing. Go to whysuicide.com and you'll receive a report about the information we covered on why. And then you'll be able to receive updates. One of the most common questions that people ask me is, Peggy, is there a way we can get the same results from you individually? As a matter of fact, the answer to that question is yes. Just yesterday, I was working with a grieving mom when she told me she had no idea where to turn for help. She was struggling with feeling like an outcast and that she wanted to feel normal and be happy. She decided to sign up for my 10-week coaching program to help to move towards those goals. It can be difficult to imagine becoming a suicide loss survivor, not knowing how to make it through the next day or month or year. Let's go ahead and pop that one down, Deb. There are questions out there as to what works. I do know that having someone help you in your loss, that you're much more likely to be able to live without your loved one. After my son died by suicide, after Connor died, I started posting on Facebook. I was being vulnerable in my heartache, confusion, and despair. However, having the mindset that I am strong and courageous, my posts were not just about grief. They included my methods and tips on how I was dealing with my loss. There were many people who were responding to my posts. They shared with me how they felt my strength encouraged them. Some of them talked about the loss of a loved one by suicide. I am blessed to have built a resource to move through unique loss by suicide and use them to help other grieving moms. I was introduced to a personal development coach, which has helped me realize the number of people who will be helped because of my personal experience in suicide death. Out of my personal growth, I have clarity on life's purpose. And I want to share that with you now because I've been where you were before. And I've gained the clarity, but it's been a journey. I remember your pain. And now my purpose in life is to be joyful, grateful, present, encouraging, positive, and be the best possible version of myself in my personal and professional relationships, exemplifying Christ in all I do so that I am an example of life's possibilities. It was pivotal in having a coach to support me so I could step into my purpose. Sometimes we can all get stuck, and it takes a coach or a mentor to move us along, even in grief. I can be the one to walk alongside you and help you find peace, joy, and happiness. And allow me to leave my final comment with you now. What I do know is that you will not return to life as it was before suicide. You will learn to adjust to life without your loved one and be able to live a fulfilling, joyful, happy life. I want to thank you for joining me today and open it up to any questions. Deb, did we have some questions pop up? Okay, so, one of the things that people really ask me is, one of the common things is creating a memorial. I know we didn't talk about that today, but creating that memorial is something that happens on your own time and terms. I knew, and my girls, my two other surviving children, knew we wanted to create a memorial. And we purchased, my son was cremated, and we purchased this living urn. And in this living urn, we were supposed to get a small sapling of a tree. And we honestly didn't know where we wanted to put that. But one of the things that we found and discovered over time was really finding a place that was meaningful. And that was absolutely amazing. And that was at the skate park. So I know that you can make it through this. You will return to life, not as before. And I want to thank you. And we'll be hopping on for our next presenter.